Are there no changes in my outward life?
But of course, you have to start building up a personal relationship with your teacher. The first step on the path of the disciple and the key to ascent is to regularly step before the presence of the teacher. Here, Agni Yoga introduces a new important term, which unfortunately is often translated incorrectly.
Stepping before the Master can be experienced only by the heart. Nothing external replaces the filling of the heart with the Master. Stepping before God, stepping before the Judge, stepping before the Master is one single concept. Therefore, on the path to the fiery world, let us remember how vital is stepping before the Master.
You cannot be a disciple if you do not go to school and meet your teacher there regularly. Imagine your teacher lived physically incarnated within walking distance in your neighborhood. As you are his disciple, it would be your natural desire to visit him as often as possible. You do love him, after all. You long for his presence, for his words and instructions, for the holy atmosphere in his abode. You would most like to live with him in his house.
I cannot and do not want to leave my partner and children. I am busy with working for a living. When then should I go to school for a teacher?
This is the cross of existence, which is spared no one, and certainly not a disciple of the temple. Usually you will have to find time for encounters with the teacher in the morning before and in the evening after work, briefly at lunchtime, and otherwise on public holidays or during vacation. You step before the teacher because he alone knows the plan for your personal education, your personal service to the common good, your personal mission on earth, your place in the hierarchy and the solving of your karma. Only from him can you learn what you have to do on each new day in order to take another step on your spiritual path and to contribute another stone to building the new world.
Without guidance by the teacher, there is no progress on the spiritual path and no new creation. What am I to do when no teacher can be found in the neighborhood?
Unfortunately, you cannot expect your teacher or any true spiritual leader at all to live near you or even to be incarnated anywhere on earth at this time. That is why you must learn to connect in spirit with your teacher. This is one of the great improvements Agni Yoga brings to humanity. You can spare yourself the journey to India. Instead, you can learn to lead, like Helena Röhrig, in New York, a real conversation with a being from the subtle world, with your non-incarnated teacher in a purely spiritual way.
The teacher watches the progress of the yogi. The sign of his progress will be the ability to hear the voice of the invisible teacher. How am I to conduct such an occult conversation?
In the morning of each day, 2 urgent questions arise. First, what should you do? What mission do you have to fulfill in the world today? And second, what do you have to learn? Which step on the spiritual path may you take today? Ask these 2 questions when you step in front of the teacher. Hearken to your inner self. Maybe the answer is already there or gradually emerging. The more faithfully you dedicate yourself to this practice, the more distinctly you will hear the voice of silence within you, which is the voice of your teacher. Believe me, with time you will experience the instructions become more and more clear, the spiritual conversation more and more real, and the teacher reveals himself step by step. How this works in detail is described in our broadcasting on meditation. You should not visit the teacher alone according to your mood, but daily or weekly at certain fixed times, and thus establish a wholesome rhythm. As below, so above. The teacher as well must adjust himself to you. If you invoke him on some days urgently several times, and then do not let anything be heard from you for months, you cannot expect a natural connection to arise.
I am practicing diligently, but often there is no conversation, and I do not receive any message or inspiration.
That does not matter. When the time is right, the connection will form. You will see, stepping before the teacher regularly alone exerts a purifying effect on your entire existence. Necessarily, your everyday life becomes in a sense a preparation for the lesson at the teacher's feet. You will have to get rid of one or the other bad habit without the teacher speaking one single word to you.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you probably will not want to step before one of the masters of this earth, burdened with an overfull stomach or stinking of garlic, alcohol, cigarettes, or sweat. And do you think it would be promising to turn to a great sage to receive spiritual instructions when you are not even able during that 1 hour to control your thoughts and to turn them off from your worldly projects, pleasures, worries, needs, and difficulties? Thus, stepping before the teacher necessarily requires a certain amount of purification.
Until a neophyte reaches the point where he can set his lower self a prisoner in the dock before his judge, his higher self, and answer each question put by the prosecutor, as well as by his advocate, specifically and truthfully, regardless of the countless excuses and explanations evoked by his passions, pride and selfishness. There is no possible chance for overcoming his limitations and reaching a point where it is possible for him to consciously reach to a master. For until he is fully aware of the conditions to be met, the weapons he has the right to use, and the character and possibilities of the enemies he has to overcome, as well as willing to accept the estimate of the master as to the possibilities for profiting by the personal supervision of that master, the latter would be wasting his time and effort.
On the other hand, the hour at the feet of the teacher, even without that anything special happens, brings about an elevation of your being, as in the case of physically visiting a concert hall or a church. This experience radiates back to your everyday life. You realize what sanctity is possible in spite of everything in this hopeless world. You will make an effort to bring with you as much as possible of this sublime mood into your everyday life and to keep it there for as long as possible. You will endeavor to adapt your earthly existence and that of your environment to this example of a higher life.